Well, hey there. You've stumbled upon the intersection of internet quandaries and psychological insight. Welcome to Veritas Views on AITA, where the quirks of the internet meet the expertise of Veritas Psychology Partners.
Thanks for joining us. I'm your host, Mike MacBride. I'm joined by our dynamic duo of psychologists.
Hi, I'm Dr. Gayle MacBride, and I am here with my co-therapist, I guess, and business partner. I was going to say co-host, but you're not hosting. That's Michael's job. So,
business partners at Veritas Psychology Partners, where we have a private practice serving 42 states around the country.
Thrilled to be here with you, Dan. What you don't know is I actually have spent a great deal of the morning with your voice in my ear.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that.
I was getting caught up on my listening. I had fallen a few little behind in listening to the episodes and was getting caught up. I have to tell you, we do these and they're interesting discussions and really stimulating. Often we say this is kind of the favorite part of our week, and it really truly is. But I have to say, I really, truly enjoyed listening to them back. And I think I've just gotten past that whole hear your own voice and how odd it sounds.
Yeah.
And I just enjoy the content. And it, again, I think I've said this before, it amuses me way more than it probably should. So I spent the morning listening to like 2 or 3 episodes. I know others are enjoying binging these relatively short and informative little episodes.
I hope so. And this week, again, Michael, you brought us an internet quandary for us to try to puzzle together from a psychological perspective.
Yeah. First of all,
extra syllables there, they're intentional.
Welcome, both of you. I mean, the extra syllables, it's what people are paying for, so I get it. Right. So for any of the newbies out there,
it's worth every dime.
If you don't know what Am I the Asshole is, in short, someone's posted a scenario online and asked readers, who's the asshole here? And that's what Dan or Gayle are going to help us determine. When there's identifiable information in the post, we've changed those to be a little more discreet. And if you're new, you should also know, stick around through the credits. We always have some kind of bonus conversation. Sometimes a mailbag thing. Sometimes it's just something else that's on our mind. So, but neither Dan nor Gayle know or have read this ahead of time. So let's go. This week's is, Am I the Asshole?
Michael, I cannot not hear SCO.
SCO.
Go from Reservation Dogs. That is such a well done show, and the kids go SCO.
Yeah, it was one of our favorites for sure recently. Right. So
go.
All right, the topic today is, am I the asshole for walking out on my boyfriend's public proposal after I explicitly asked for a private one?
No. Okay, we're out.
Wow, just like that.
Dan's declared. Shortest podcast of the entire series.
I mean, there's more to it, I'm certain. Mm-hmm. But I have this like my thought about, just before even hearing more, a public proposal is like, you see proposals at ball games or the Taylor Swift concert, whatever. You ask publicly when you're 100% certain. Beyond any doubt of what the answer is going to be, and that it's desired. Just at least, you may not be 100% certain it's desired, but you got to know it's going to be a yes, and you got to be pretty damn sure that whoever it is going to be okay with the public.
Well, it sounds like we're going to hear more, but it sounds like they talked about it in advance. I'm guessing the proposer was certain of the yes. Maybe got the venue wrong, but we should.
Perhaps we should hear the story.
Michael, why don't you regale us with the details?
Okay, here's what you got. So it's male-female relationship, if that ends up factoring into your conversations. And they're essentially 30. Have been together for 3 years. We've discussed marriage, and I've always been clear that I prefer intimate moments over grand gestures. The poster is the female.
Got it.
Public attention makes me uncomfortable. Last weekend, boyfriend took me to a fancy restaurant. Midway through dinner, he stands up, clinks his glass, and suddenly all eyes are on us. He starts giving a heartfelt speech and then gets down on one knee to propose. I was in shock and felt my face burning with embarrassment. I quietly asked him to please stand up and talk privately, but he kept insisting. Overwhelmed, I whispered, "I'm sorry," and I left the restaurant. Later, he called me furious, saying I humiliated him and that I should have just gone along with it. Now our friends and family are divided, some saying I overreacted, others understand my discomfort. I feel guilty, but also upset they disregarded my feelings. Who's the asshole here?
This is so cringe.
It is so cringe.
This is so cringe. Again, like, not that we can't read our partner's mind, but in this case, there's no mind reading necessary. No. She was really clear about.
I'm going to invite you, Dan, to talk about the platinum rule. I think the platinum rule applies here.
I think that's a good one. Yeah, yeah. The golden rule, we're all familiar, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, is an absolutely shitty rule for relationships. Like, so many relationships get ruined by people who follow the golden rule. I don't like the same things my wife does. And vice versa. If we follow the golden rule, it'd be awful. You should follow the platinum rule. Now, Gayle, define you want to run with this now? I've talked enough.
Sure. The platinum rule, as set forth by Dr. Daniel Kessler. I don't know if anybody else has ever talked about.
I stole it from someone.
I totally stole it from someone. I totally stole it.
No, it's not mine.
I use it a lot because it's so good. The platinum rule is do unto others as they would have you do unto them, or something to that.
Yes, do unto others as they want done unto them.
There you go. And that really is about knowing your partner, what their preferences are, and doing it the way that they want it, because that's the way they want it, even if it's different than the way you would want it.
Right.
And this goes across the relationship spectrum, whether that be sexual activity, public displays of affection, how you like your coffee.
Right.
Don't make your partner's coffee the way you want it. Make it the way they want it. Don't give them the proposal you want. Give them the proposal they want.
And I will say, there would be people who would be overjoyed at this proposal, to have the whole restaurant looking at them, to have everyone seeing the love in their partner's eyes, to have
when they say yes,
to have them cheer, yes, oh yay, and cheer, and to have the whole place turn to them. There are people who would adore that.
This is not that person.
This is not that person.
And she made it really clear. Yeah. And I think as an intimate partner, the boyfriend is absolutely aware of this.
Right.
And then turns it around and says, hey, not cool. You should have gone with it. Like, no. I expected you to go through a situation and I would like to disregard your feelings and preferences, and I want you to just do it my way. That is not a strong start to a marital relationship.
No, it's really unfortunate. It's
that's a huge mess.
I will say, I almost expect this to show up like in some, like, down the road. Am I the asshole for or am I overreacting for, which is another discussion off, am I overreacting? Am I overreacting for breaking up with my boyfriend for doing blah 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 blah? And I could see like that coming up in that situation. This person, the boyfriend, has utterly failed to recognize what her needs were in the situation. And I get it. He's caught up in wanting to show everyone how much he loves her. I mean, it doesn't come from a belligerent or mean place.
Right.
I don't think. And I'm assuming positive intent, and I'm assuming that he means this to come from a good place of caring and love and wanting to tell the whole world how much he loves her. And at the same time, it's so
like a bad scene out of a rom-com, right? This is how it starts. We introduce the problem, this tone-deaf boyfriend, and this girl runs out, and no, this is not good.
No, it's not. It's not. And again, as you mentioned, rom-coms, like, have a conversation. We say it, we almost every episode it comes up. Right. The rom-com is ruined by a good, honest conversation, 10 minutes in. But in this case, they had the good, honest conversation. So I guess I have to adapt what I often say about that, which is a good, honest conversation 10 minutes in that both people listen to.
Yeah, this feels a little like your no meant yes. And we can really get into some troubled waters if we assume, especially in this case, this woman's no meant yes. We're not playing games. And please don't. I mean, if you think, oh my gosh, I'm going to just say coyly and then get someone to do something. No, that doesn't help anybody. Be clear with your no, be unequivocal in your no. And if your partner's given you a no, it's a no.
Right.
And if they get pissed later that you should have known that my no was a yes, then
that's
no,
better. That's
bad.
That's just a scream for better communication.
Right.
But I mean, this is, as I see this in my eye, even as Michael described it, it became painful in my head to watch both of them. His pain and having her leave in the midst of this moment that he thought was going to be amazing and wonderful, and her pain and having him stand up and get everyone's attention drawn to her.
I imagined being in that restaurant at, having gone to dinner with my family or my husband, he and I are sitting there and you hear the tink of the glass, what's coming. The second that glass tinks, what's coming.
Someone's doing
and then
something.
To watch her look uncomfortable and squirm and turn red, I think my heart would just be in my toes, or my stomach would be in my toes at that point. Like, it would just be painful to watch. Painful to watch her leave, and just, I think your heart would go out to that couple at this point. And certainly sitting here listening to this, like imagining that scene, my heart is out to them.
Yeah, in my mind's eye,
this boy failed.
In my mind's eye, he reaches into his back pocket, takes out his wallet, slowly shuffles out some bills, lays them on the table, and walks out dejectedly as everyone watches him.
You're assuming people carry cash anymore. Wow.
Again, it's a scene from a movie.
He's desperate for the wait staff to come over so he could slide that credit card, but the wait staff can't get there fast enough.
In my head, it's a scene from a movie from the 70s or 80s. It's not a scene from a current movie.
Well, because today I would feel like we would do better, but apparently not. I'm sorry for this couple, but no, he was absolutely in the wrong. I don't want to call him an asshole, but he certainly sucked here. This was an absolute miss, because and I'm sorry, I'm jumping the gun. We haven't even heard what the internet said or any clarification, but he sucks. He knew his partner's preference. He blew by it in this idea. I think, again, assuming best intent, he wanted to create a romantic moment that they would tell forever. He just colossally missed.
Yeah. And we've talked in the past about the concept of mens rea, the idea that from a legal perspective, in order to be guilty of certain crimes, there has to have been like a malicious intent. And I don't think that in order to be an asshole, I think one element of that is mens rea. You have to have this idea that you're doing something wrong, you're doing it anyway. Like, that's how you get to be an asshole. So I'm not willing to call him an asshole, but he sucks. And but I also think I agree with you. He sucks, and he was hella tone deaf and wasn't listening to her, which gets gets right up against, like, almost like he gets the ball down to like the 2-yard line. Like, he's really close to being an asshole here, but I'm just going to go with he really sucks, because you just don't blow off your partner when they give you something that important. And she's totally, her emotional response.
There is no other way to respond to that moment other than to say, I set a boundary. I said, I'm not going through this. I'm leaving.
Yeah. And she could have, quote, played along, but that's too much to ask in the moment, to be that shocked. Even when people like you see this all the time, like, people know they're going to get engaged. And even when they know the engagement question is coming, it's still this like shocking moment. And she didn't expect it, because they're in a public place.
Not there.
And he knows better, because they've talked about it.
Yeah.
So while she was expecting it, she wasn't expecting in that restaurant, expecting her to then like have the wherewithal to say, oh, I'll play along with this. No. That was, I will say, for that might get him over the goal line to being an asshole, for getting mad at her.
Yeah.
When he said, like, you should have played along, getting mad at her. Now he may have crossed the line.
I think he did. Yeah. And sometimes we do expect our partner to go along or to function when they are overwhelmed with emotion. And that is really not fair, and really an unreasonable ask can do some significant harm in a relationship. I think you've moved me on this a little bit, Dan. I'm going to go with, he is pretty dickish here for getting
Yeah.
angry with her about being upset in that moment and
Yeah.
kind of turning that blame onto her. He really needed to fall on his sword and say, I am so sorry.
Right.
I
Yes.
completely misread that. And my deepest apologies for putting you in such a difficult position.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
The initial thing, I could totally see him getting caught up in the excitement. I'm going to ask her this really cool way, and I've got this really great plan. Like, and getting really, really excited about it.
Right.
And yeah. She said, but I know she'll like it in the actual moment. I could see him getting caught up in
Well,
that
it's
place.
just us in the restaurant, right?
Yeah, like it'll be really
For a room
cool.
full of
And like
strangers.
I could see that. And that's why I'm not willing to call him an asshole for that, because I mean, he was tone deaf. He failed her completely. Afterwards,
Yeah.
his only statement is, honey, I am so incredibly sorry. Like, he should have been completely like, I fucked up. I was wrong. You were right. I never should have done that. And spend and eventually, like, if he handles that right, it becomes this like hilarious story 20 years from now that they tell about how badly he fucked up, not realizing what
Right. I mean, I really feel like this is a turning point potentially for this relationship.
Right.
We're going to shout out to John and Julie Gottman again when we talk about communication and how do we talk about our pain points. And as
Right.
he's blaming her, engaging in defensiveness and sort of
Yeah.
criticism and contempt, which we know are really necrotic or problematic for couples communication, this increases the likelihood that they are not going to be able to get past this in a productive way unless he can come back around and really take responsibility and ownership for hurting her.
Yeah. And quick shout out, Michael, link in the show notes for our work, for the sheet we've put together. And I say we, it's mostly Dr. MacBride. The sheet we put together on these Gottman principles that I think are really, really important about relationships. We put together a nice one pager that people will love on our website. You'll be able to click through to that. But yeah, in our relationships, like the most important thing we can do when we screw up in a relationship is say, yeah, I screwed up.
Yeah.
And our temptation is to double down. No, I didn't screw up, you did. And that effort to defend oneself is in almost every single case. I just can't think of one off the top of my head, but in almost every single case, defending yourself is wrong.
Yeah.
And the better thing to do is to point out your mistake. And often when I'm doing couples work, people say, well, I want to defend myself. I'm like, no, you don't.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you start defending yourself, you're losing the connection with your partner.
Yeah.
Go out of your way to find your faults and point them out openly and honestly. And that's the way we move to get forward together when we're doing couples work. People don't know. It's a tough thing to hear.
By the way, I now think of that conversation as the I done fucked up conversation. Thank you, Dan. I hear you in my head with that all the time.
But it's amazing to watch when I work with couples and someone gets it and they're like, wow, I fucked up. Like, I am so sorry. And you just see their partner immediately soften and get closer.
Yep. And I'll point that out to couples sometimes. Did you see that?
Did you exactly? Did you see how much closer he got to you? Or did you know how much closer she got to you when you said, I fucked up. And when I fucked up, I hurt you.
Yeah.
And I really don't want to hurt you. I want to do this differently. That's magic. And if we can get couples away from defending themselves and arguing back and doubling, tripling down, and get them to that place where they can point out their own flaws, the magic happens. I love doing couples work with folks who are able to get to that place. Not always easy, though. Sometimes takes a while.
Michael, often there are pieces of information in the comments that are useful to our discussion. I mean, I think Dan and I have kind of created a ruling here, but is there anything else that we missed in the discussion that you'd like to point out or got filled in?
No, there really wasn't any follow-up from the original poster. I mean, one of the things I guess that the internet, and I'll give you feedback on them, was very, very much on your side. Like they, it was, for them, it was very cut and dried. But one of the things that came up a couple of times was like asking about the family. Like, what are the arguments that your family is saying that you overreacted? And why do they not support you? Like, what's going on with your family, essentially? And so I don't know if you want to talk about that part at all, or if it just kind of falls into the same camp as.
I really want to know why the family would have any sway over this. I mean, the weight of the family shouldn't matter whether or not she was uncomfortable. If she was uncomfortable, period, end of sentence, we're done. There's no argument the family can give that should, again, tell her that, well, you reacted badly. I think that doesn't matter to me what their opinion is. Like, kind of fuck off. It's not your proposal. And you are just potentially building a case for her to continue to engage in a piece of the relationship that's causing her hurt and harm.
Yeah, I think so what the internet basically, said, absolutely, you're not the asshole. You told them what you needed. Even in the moment when it started, you said, no, please stand up. Like there was a reminder, like, no, actually, I'm really not okay with this. He had a couple opportunities. Most people went then so far as to, say like you dodged a bullet. 91% of failed proposals lead to a breakup. I don't know where that percentage came from, but that's what somebody said.
Probably, like all statistics.
Right? I was gonna say, like my favorite quote: "Don't believe everything you read on the internet." Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah. Right. Others said, "Do not marry this man. He doesn't care about how you feel, only about his own preferences, and this will continue." And then the last one that I'll quote was, please do some research on the characteristics of a narcissist. This controlling, self-centered behavior of his is one that you'll see, and other narcissistic qualities in him. Run for your life. You will never change him, and he won't change.
I mean, this was a failure for sure. This was an absolute failure. But go ahead, Gail. You're.
I'm not ready to use the narcissist word. Boy, we use that a lot these days. Narcissism is a pattern across relationships and situations. We cannot assume this guy's a narcissist based on one interaction, one kind of situation or role functioning. Not fair. I call out that commenter. That is absolutely an overreach as far as a label.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. We bandy about the word narcissist really should be reserved for very specific and special situations. And as Gail mentioned, a pattern of behavior. He done fucked up. Absolutely. And if he's willing to own it, this relationship is not over because of this mistake. It has been ruptured, for sure. And there's a need to do work on the relationship, but I'm not ready to tell her to throw in the towel over this. People make mistakes.
They do. They do. And we need to just be very careful about labeling other people's relationships and other people's partners.
Yeah. And I certainly see, I've both seen this where people like someone makes, oh no, he needs to, it especially happens all on the internet. Oh, you need to leave them, or no, they're great. No, let's judge people by the entirety of their choices and behaviors, not by a specific, with exceptions, obviously. Yeah, I mean, but this is the sort of thing I think it's recoverable, but there's a rupture here that needs to be repaired.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you both for another riveting debate and a glimpse into the collective conscious of internet forums. Remember, morality is often shades of gray and not just black and white.
Boy, I also think that sometimes reality is trying to imitate art. Why is it that we continue to try to emulate these rom-coms? They don't end well. They're always cringy. Yeah, guys, let's not.
Please.
Yeah.
So, Michael.
So please follow and share Veritas Views, the podcast platforms, with your neighbors and friends. And as always, stick around through the credits for the bonus conversation. See you on the other side.
You can follow Dr. Dan Kessler at Dr. Dan Kessler and Dr. Gayle MacBride at Dr. G. MacBride. Oh, and you can find them both at veritaspp.com. Credits. Tickling the Ivories, Matthew Reddington. Art, production, and design, bringing this show together with flair and finesse, Michelle Love. Recording and editing, turning chaos into something worth sharing, Michael MacBride. Intro, outro, I'm Kelly Buttrick, a VO talent who just happens to be Dr. MacBride's cousin. Cats, CJ, Linus, Sadie, and Griffin. Hosting by whomever lost the coin flip. Interruptions by all their children. The content of this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional mental health advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Listening to this podcast does not constitute a therapist-client relationship. If you believe you may be experiencing a mental health issue, please seek the assistance of a qualified mental health professional. If you are experiencing a mental health crisis, you can call or text 988 from anywhere in the U.S. to be connected to Crisis Mental Health Services.
Thanks for listening. As promised, here's that bonus conversation.
Gayle,
Yeah.
what speed are you listening to your podcasts at?
Oh, never less than 1.5. And you know what? I'm sorry. If you're a slow talker, I got that bad boy on 2.0. Even us, like I'm a pretty fast talker. In fact, Dan, I think you do a really great job of slowing your cadence down from when you and I, just even normally converse. You are really thoughtful and a really good public speaker that way. And I try to take notes and do somewhat of the same thing. I naturally have a very fast speech cadence. And so maybe that's where my impatience comes from other podcasts, but I will 100%, even our own podcast, 1.5 speed, man.
It's funny. I asked that in part because I listen to most of my podcasts at 1.5. But this one, I find it hard to track us any faster than 1.2.
Really? Oh,
so I have to listen to this podcast at 1.2 instead of 1.5, where I listen to most of mine. I can't get to 2.0. My brain doesn't operate as quickly. So,
well, I shout out to you, Dan. I wouldn't have ever occurred to me to speed it up. And you mentioned it, I don't know, years ago. And I was like, oh, this is
wasn't my idea. Yeah.
Well, I'm sure not. But like many good ideas, you hear it and you steal it and, share it along.
But I would love to hear from people letting us know, like, where are we 1.5 podcast? Are we a 2.0 podcast? Are we a 0.8 podcast? You have to slow down to really hear our wisdom. Probably not. All right.
Anyway, that's just a double listen. They go back and listen again because
absolutely.
There's so much rich content.
Thanks so much for listening. And Michael, play us out.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in. Check us out next week for a whole nother riveting debate.
We love hearing from you, so please review us on Apple, Spotify, or, well, wherever you're listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, please review, like, and follow. Also, give it a share. This helps us reach more listeners.